back. Woo! Hi, I'm Christian.
And we're excited about it.
Yeah, woo, pumped.
They're excited for me. I'm joined by Zach and Mitchell, as always.
Hi.
This is Cookie Pocket, a podcast about film. And we're done with our finals, so you know what that means. We're here to talk about movies. Yay. Before we get into the thing, how are you guys doing? How you doing?
Man, I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm tired, but I'm ready to go. I'm ready for the pockets to cookie and the cookies to pocket. It is 6:58 p.m. here on the Eastern Seaboard, and I am ready to cookie the pocket. Okay, that's all I have to say.
Likewise.
Yeah. I'm doing okay. I just wrapped up the year. Just wrapped up the year. I literally just got home from college, and about 5 minutes later, I'm recording this episode. But yeah, I got a grant from my university, so I'm using that to make a film this summer, so that's going to be all fun and good.
Yay! You don't need Kickstarter. Woo!
Not for this one.
Oof. Yes, I am also done, still on campus at the moment, and also, as you might be able to tell, recovering from a bit of a yeah. So we're just gonna, try to roll through it, I guess. Today we are discussing Finding Nemo, directed by Andrew Stanton from 2003, the sort of prime Y2K Pixar stuff. Yeah, and I mean, if you don't know what the plot is, then it's
Just go and watch Taken.
I call it a father-son adventure subgenre, but I feel like that's if you were to view Dory as the son rather than the real son in a way. But Nemo gets lost, so they have to find him. That's basically what that's
Pretty much.
That's what happens in the movie. Okay, I guess we'll start with ratings out of 5. General thoughts. Yeah, take it away. Someone.
Zach, go.
Sure. So I hadn't seen this movie since I was maybe like 10 or 11. So this was a long time revisit for me. And I enjoyed it a lot. I think that it's sort of that classic Pixar where it genuinely works as like a movie for children, and it's a very good children's film. But there's plenty of things in there additionally that adults can enjoy, and not in that DreamWorks way where every now and then there will be like a sex joke or something like that, but in a very sort of mature way where there's deeper levels to the story that you can appreciate as you get older. I really like the score as well by Cookie Pocket alum Thomas Newman, who also did the score to 1917.
And Wall-E.
And yeah, I think his score in this... Oh, yeah. And I think his score in this is really effective. Specifically kind of that opening, very light sort of classical theme, which I think is really effective after that opening scene going into the titles. But yeah, it's a 4 out of 5 for me. I do really enjoy it. I think the climax feels a little sudden for me. It does feel like it just sort of appears to kind of end the arc of the story, and then the movie ends. But I understand why it's there. It's an effective climax, and you can't make the movie too long or the kids will start to get bored. And I do enjoy it. So 4 out of 5.
I enjoyed the climax, Zach. It was very climactic.
That's true.
Adjectives. I think so.
Don't make me laugh today,
Christian,
Mitchell.
sorry. So while Christian's recovering from the unknown illness, I will give this a 5 out of 5, very easily. And I was thinking, kind of midway through, I was like, 4.5 out of 5. I feel like there's no way this can really like conclude where it kind of wraps up after all of like the aggressively depressing things that happen early on and how like traumatic everything is. But I guess that kind of falls on the realism and the natural like occurrences that kind of lead to him actually finding his son. And I mean, realistic to the standard, like applying it to real life human standards, I guess. But like, he finds his son and that's it. But Yeah, I mean, there's so many different lessons in this, and every single scene is valuable in some way to a child or to an adult, and that's just classic Pixar to me. And like no side character feels wasted, no line of dialogue feels wasted. Every time they say something, it feels like they're actively trying to better themselves or better someone else. And sure, they don't like find the best like people like or best, anthropomorphic fishes and things related. Like the sharks, that's great. Like they easily worked in an AA meeting, and that could have not come across more obviously to someone who's an adult. But I mean, it's just so easy to understand what they're trying to say, and just the different types of fish and everything that they meet along the way is so diverse and realistic to the real world that it really can't be replicated again. Like they couldn't have gotten more of a diverse like cast when it comes to the voice acting, and diverse character set when it comes to the actual adventure elements. Like, not to mention it was all so seamless, and the ocean in general is just an easily workable setting, especially in an animated context. So like you could pretty much just have random things happen because it's in a random ecosystem, just like real life. Like things just randomly happen, like predators just show up out of nowhere, right? And it's just it's so easily believable and so workable and relatable, and there's really no other Pixar film that comes close to this in that aspect for me. And I mean, that's just that alone already earns it a 5 out of 5. And like I said, the voice acting's fantastic. Willem Dafoe's best role, obviously. And just, the light comedy bits and everything are so easily worked in, and it just teaches so many valuable lessons. And I know so many animated films do, but just the way that this one went about it, by using that broader father-son searching for the son context thing, and then having the adventure elements feel so natural and changing pace enough where it works for literally everyone. And it's just, I can't see any way you could come out of this without feeling something or learning something from it. Even me watching it probably tens of times at this point. So yeah, 5 out of 5, pretty easy for me on that front.
Yeah, I largely agree. I also excuse me. I also gave this a 5 out of 5. I had rewatched this last summer with my mom, and it was the first time I had watched it in years. And that is sort of what spurred me to include it on our season 3 here. And Mitchell, I think you've summed it up really quite nicely. How much everything sort of springs from the environment and the setting of the sea is like, it creates this sort of like condition of spontaneity that suits the chaos and like you said, diverse cast of creatures and what have you. And in terms of the climax, I see what you mean, Zach, and I probably noticed that a bit more this time just because it's a rewatch not too far on the heels of another rewatch. So, everything feels a little bit slower when you're rewatching something close to the last time you saw it. But I feel like so much of like Marlin and Dory's adventure feels like this sort of perpetual like death march. There aren't really like there's a progression, but there aren't really like goals that they're achieving, and like she's memorizing the mask, but there aren't really like steps. Like there isn't like a 1 through 5 list of things that they have to do to find Nemo. So there is this sort of uncertainty around if and when he does show up.
Just like real life.
Yeah, exactly. So
I think it might be because it almost feels like there's like a weird nick in the rising action. Because there is no like clear progression necessarily, but they're going through like these tasks and tribulations to get to Sydney and to find Nemo, and then they think he's dead. I mean, spoiler for this film that came out in 2003. They think that Nemo is dead, and then there's kind of this falling action moment, and then suddenly a net. And so there's like a weird dip in the rising action, and to me that was just a little jarring on this watch at least.
Yeah, and you're not wrong. It just did enough things right that I didn't personally care.
Yeah.
which is fine. These things happen. And when I knew that I was gonna get like a reasonable Zach 4 from this, and like a somewhat nostalgic 5 for myself and Mitchell, that's just how today was going to go. And that's totally fine.
Yeah.
This is our second outing with Andrew Stanton. I know we've mentioned, or I mentioned Wally like a minute or so ago, and I might slightly prefer Wally, but I think this one might be better. They're difficult to compare, but I don't really know like the mechanics behind animating the sea and fish, but I think that they did a really good job of like capturing human. We talk about like anthropomorphic features, capturing human mannerisms and emotions in non-human bodies, and not just like quadrupedal land animals, but like fish where like every single movement cannot be like recontextualized to a human body. So like I mean, like Marlin literally counts that he has like 3 fins at the beginning, and it's like those and his mouth and his eyes, and that's kind of like all that the animators have to work with. And I think they really like every fish is really, really distinct in personality, and there's the characters are dynamic. Some of them are not dynamic, but they all serve their purpose in that way. And yeah, I just think this is an example of something like really executed to the fullest technically. So I don't know. What else do you guys want to talk about before I burst into another fit?
The Lion King remake is bad.
No.
Are we still talking about this movie?
Oh no, let's not talk about the Lion King remake, please.
Mark Zuckerberg is a lizard.
I think in regard to animating the sea, I was really, really impressed by the fluid animations in this. I'm by no means an animator, but I have done some animation and some CG rendering, and anybody who's done anything with CG will tell you that fluid is one of the most frustrating things to try to animate because it behaves unpredictably, and it reflects. Pardon me. And it reflects light, but sometimes in unpredictable ways and patterns that are difficult to animate. And I think this does that like flawlessly, especially when they're under the sea. I think it looks great. Some of the humans do look a little iffy.
Yeah.
We're still sort of. I mean, this is, I forget where this comes in the Pixar order, but this is a huge leap forward from Toy Story. Like the humans don't look like nightmares in this one. But they do still look a little unusual. They're not quite like humanoid. But I think the fish have so much personality and the textures seem so real. And I love little details that they transfer to make the fish relatable as like people, but they change them for the sea. Like when the fish are looking above water to see if they can spot something, they take breaths underwater before going up. The way that, you know, a human being would take a breath above water before going down to look for something. And I think a lot of the best jokes kind of come from that as well. I think I laughed the most in the movie when it's kind of the climax before the climax, where they're trying to rescue Nemo at the dentist's office. And the fish in the tank say, like, the dentist has got him. He's taking him to the trash can. And Marlin just says, dentist? What's that? I laughed so hard at that.
That's really good.
Who's that awkwardly tall white man laughing in my theater at this joke right now? That wasn't even a joke. I'm just kidding. That is pretty funny. But I heavily enjoy it. I mean, Dory, come on. Ellen DeGeneres, peak performance. Everything after 2003 downhill. But Ellen DeGeneres 2003, Ellen was all right to have on in the background, and Dory is a fantastic character. And, you know, obviously she does the character justice too in Finding Dory, but I mean, just her, like, her forgetting things and sometimes remembering things just feels so realistic and doesn't feel like it was forced on her character or anything. Like just, you can even like Dory is like the side, oh, I said side piece. Wow. The side character to Marlin and Nemo's individual journeys and their own coming of age. Because even though Dory never really had like those traumatic experiences or even those fantastic, wonderful experiences in her life, like maybe Marlin and Nemo do in a more direct way, like Dory just being a part of it was so exhilarating for her, and her being able to express herself so openly and kind of come out of that introverted kind of childhood way of looking at things, which is counter to a lot of Nemo's personality traits as a child, and also counter to Marlin's kind of authoritarian, like, you know, trying to be as restrictive as a father as possible to protect his own son from the evils of life. And I just think between the three of them, there's really nothing that's missing when it comes to the core aspects of what it's like growing up and also living it as an adult, especially as a part of a family unit. Because Dory is basically a part of the family unit by the end. Mm-hmm. So that dynamic is so unique, and another thing that really couldn't be replicated. And it's so enjoyable, and there's very few times where I wasn't at least like lightly exhaling when Dory said something, or is just trying to figure things out. And it never also, there's another problem that a lot of animated movies have now, even regular movies do, that where they're trying to make a character that's not entirely with it and is kind of an oddball when it comes to like figuring things out, or like, you know, didn't have like a certain like emotional development the same way that other characters did. So they kind of really hammer that down and make it really obvious.
Yeah.
And Dory couldn't have been more of a subtle and realistic like human being. And it's insane how sometimes she's smart, sometimes she's dumb, but it's not like Patrick Star or something where he's like all of a sudden he's really like a super genius. You know, the inner machinations of my mind are an enigma, and then he's like, is mayonnaise an instrument? You know, it's like it's just feels so advanced, and it's totally timeless too. Another thing, mentioning the animation, the animation, I mean, 20 years from now, I know I'm speaking like, you know, 20 years, I'll be like, oh, I'm so stupid, like, you got so much time, but the animation is just so, it's at that right period, you know. It's like Zach said, right after Toy Story, and like, you know, even in Incredibles, trying to make all those humans and stuff seem so realistic. I mean, you can tell it's an older movie, but like something about the ocean and the way that they did the fluids and everything are just so, like, it's just at that point where you can accept it. And it's like, you don't see fish every day unless you're a marine biologist or a diver or whatever. And, you know, I remember back in middle school when we were doing like the Chesapeake Bay stuff and like looking at North Bay and everything. That was great. But yeah, I just, you know, I just think the ocean is such a perfect setting for this. And, you know, it's so easy to build upon. And the sequel definitely kind of proves that too. You guys wanted to mention that at all.
Well, I don't know if I necessarily wanted to talk about Finding Dory in detail.
No, not in detail.
I can't remember it in detail.
I can't. Honestly, I can't either.
It's
just looks better.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just kind of there. It was also directed by Andrew Stanton. I mean, I don't know. I think the interesting thing about the water to me is, I get what you guys are saying about how like fluids are harder to animate because they're more predictable, but since they're just, most of the time, since they're just like submerged in the water, it's just like the water is to the fish as air is to like a human in another film. So I think what really makes it work for me is the way light sort of refracts shines differently on the fishies. You know, I like the way it's lit because the water. You know, anyway.
Somewhere beyond the sea, somewhere
waiting for me.
I have to double down on Mitchell's point about like the like sort of scattered character thing, because now I feel like there is this trend of like making a character like mentally ill to the extreme in like every manner of movie. It really is like, now that you said
he's
it out
funny because he's dumb. Like, it's just, you know, I mean, it's not only that too, but like, you know, I mean, and Dory has her own self-discovery, and there's a lot of self-reflection that's done in the movie, which kind of led on to my point about leads on to my point about the supporting characters being so memorable, because almost every single time, I think the any character that aids them in their journey, specifically Marlin and Dory's, is talked about later. Like, even the sea turtle thing was a constant like reference over and over again. And the accents and we knew when the sea turtles were coming, and we knew that after they already happened. The jellyfish thing was a big part of like the telephone story that kind of went on, saying how Marlin was this great guy and fought a million sharks and stuff. But the sharks come back later. The school of fish kind of morphing and telling them the exact direction to go was integral to the main plot line, and told them exactly where Sydney was, which is what they're worried about. Like, just I feel like that's a part of why the side characters are so memorable. Not to mention they have very good voice actors that are all have distinct voices that are easily memorable. And also to include all of the Dennis fish tank characters, which have some of the best like comedy lines in my opinion. The starfish is just amazing. Like, and just every time he peels off peels off the window.
That's voiced by Allison Janney, Kenyan alumnus.
Right. She peels right. Yeah. She peels off the window and just you're just always interested to see what they're gonna say. And I had mentioned this to my parents when we were watching this together. That when the fish tank gets dirty, like all of their like primary character traits, because they really only have like one main thing that they're all about, perfectly meshes.
Some more than others.
Right, yeah. Boo-boos! But it perfectly meshes with the dirty tank thing, because you have like the germaphobe, what's her name, looking for flow in the reflection.
So they do have the over-the-top mentally ill character. Never mind.
Oh, right, yeah.
But it's not like Dory is like Charlie Day or something.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's what makes the fish tank characters very interesting to me also, and then Nemo goes on his own development and everything, and having the elderly kind of other guy from the ocean kind of helping him and discovering himself and everything. And it's just so crazy, like how much it teaches you that helping other people and being yourself and helping other people helps yourself in the end too. Like, it's like a reciprocal thing, and it's not as simple as just like man is on trail and tells you have to fight the troll under the bridge or something, or it's like the Black Knight, just dies and he's like, he's quadriplegic or whatever, and and it's just like says, you can't come past, you shall not pass.
I think that was a Monty Python reference.
It is a Monty Python
reference. Home.
Yes. Yeah, and just Monty Python is high art. Okay, there's no arguing that. But yes, I just like everything just comes together so well when it comes to just remixing the hero's journey and the general storytelling beats, and it just makes it entirely unforgettable. I mean, there's barely any supporting characters I could forget at this point. Even the parents of the kids that look just like them, and the seahorse racism, and the inking squid.
Which I like that it's like, because typically if that were like in a movie with humans, those would be like the moms dropping off the kids at school. Right. But I like that it's the dads, because a lot of the time in fish culture, it is the dads who are like the more active parent. Like seahorse males are the ones who give birth to the children. I just thought that was a nice detail, and I was thinking about it this morning.
Yeah.
It's good that they're fish, because it lets them get away with that joke. Can you imagine if it was like, if they were humans and he was like, oh, you're blank race, so you must be a really bad driver or something like
you pony boy.
That'd be terrible.
Oh my gosh.
I love how animation lets us get away with things. While we're on the topic of good jokes, what always gets me, what's been memed to death by anyone that's seen this as a kid and like impersonates a character in passing, is the whole speaking whale thing. And every time it comes, I'm like, oh yeah, Dory's gonna do the speaking whale thing, ha ha ha. And then she starts doing the humpback whale thing, and I'm like, oh, that's actually pretty funny. Yeah. And then she does
the
like
different dialects,
the humpback whale thing, but louder, and she's just, like croaking at maximum volume. I laugh out loud every time, and I'm not a big laugher, especially when I'm watching stuff alone. So
I do think Ellen's really good in this. I think she's like the most, like, even if you didn't know the cast, I feel like you would watch this and you'd be like, oh, okay, this character is like somebody. This is like, she sort of feels like stunt cast, where it's like the one person where it's like, and this comedian in the role of the genie or whatever. But I think she has really good chemistry with Albert Brooks.
Definitely.
And they play off of each other really well. The things like the just keep swimming scene, I think they kind of escalate off of each other with the dialogue really well. But yeah, there are two gags in this that I didn't really even recall were from this movie, but are just like in my head as things that, like, I don't know, my sister and I say or have said for years. One is I'm obnoxious from the opening when they're all talking about the conditions.
Yeah.
And then the second is when the school of fish are like mocking Marlin, and they go blah 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 me blah 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 me. And I use that beat all the time when I'm like, I don't know, humming or making fun of somebody, and I had no idea it was from this movie.
Yeah.
Wow. It's quite impressionable. Yeah. Oh, and I know we mentioned Monty Python minutes ago. Dear listener, if you haven't already,
Oh my gosh.
take a peek at our back catalog and go find that episode when we discuss Monty Python
Yeah.
and the Holy Grail in glorious detail, hosted by
Yeah.
Angel.
And don't forget to like and
welcome.
subscribe. Smash that like button and hit the bell for notifications.
You're like, if you added like some Aussie on top of that, you would have been Crush for that. Who, by the way, I had no idea. Crush is voiced by Andrew Stanton, the director
Yeah.
of the film,
Yeah.
which is like, I was shook by that. He's just like a dude with glasses.
Yeah. One of the sharks is voiced by Eric Bana, who's like a pretty big name, and he has like 4 lines.
Wow.
Yeah.
The wonders of 2003. Yeah, well, I don't know. Whew. Yeesh. I'm H2O intolerant, evidently.
Haha.
It's a reference to the movie we're talking. Yeah. Well, if you guys have final thoughts, I'm ready for the final thoughts. As you can tell, dear listener, this has been a relatively unstructured episode, but
Yes.
thank you two for carrying the discussion while I hack up my lungs.
You know, we're getting back into the swing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to. I really like Jeffrey Rush as the Pelican, Nigel.
Mhm.
And I think the scene, or sequence, I guess, that kind of makes the movie for me, or the scene that kind of transfers the theme the most for me, is the bit
Mine.
where, no, is the bit where Nigel is telling Nemo about this story he's heard about Marlin sort of traversing the ocean. The one that begins with, I heard he took on 3. I think that's a great moment, and just was kind of like a nice audio fade and like 2 shot reverse shots. It like tells you a lot about Nemo's impression of his father changing due to these things that he's gone through in order to find him. I think it's a really great sequence, and the fact that the movie does that with just editing and the faces of characters who don't even resemble human beings, I think is really quite impressive.
Probably stole it from Eminem's Without Me music video. That's fine. Guess who's back? Yeah. If we go about 2 miles, you find a trench. I love that School of Fish so much.
He's doing Ratzenberger.
That
That's
is
good.
so funny. Yeah, it's Finding Nemo. I think everyone's seen this. It's great. It's great, and there's always something to learn from it. Even if you watch it and then forget something, it's okay. You can watch the entire movie again just to remember that one specific scene. And man, that what's it called? The with the light in front of it. I always forget what it's called.
Anglerfish.
The angler. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was freaky.
Yeah.
That was some pretty intense horror there, Zach. I don't know. I'd take notes, honestly. I think that's really
I don't know. I
good.
find that scene really funny.
John Carpenter took a break from his video games and was quivering in his boots.
I do like, though, in that scene, how, and the scene with the barracuda, too, the whole thing of, like, how does a fish fight? I think they render that in a really interesting way, where Marlin is basically just, like, body slamming fish in the head. But, like, it looks really dynamic, and you do feel, like, that sense of danger. and that intensity of like, oh wow, gotta get out of the way, which I think is another testament to the editing.
Or just watch The Phantom Menace.
Oh, jeez. Okay, let's not open that can of worms yet.
Not yet.
We might get to it someday. Anyway. Well, I think
Hey, I wasn't done yet, Christian.
Oh, damn. Okay. Well.
5 out of 5. All right.
Okay, he's done. Great. Now I can. Okay, come on. I could talk for a minute without losing it. My favorite moment. Yep. I really love Zach's as well. But mine is when Marlin is sort of like eulogizing Nemo before he's gotten back to him, and he's like speechifying why he has to find him, why he needs to like be a good dad, and why he needs to make sure nothing ever happens to him. And Dory's just like, well, that's a funny thing to say. You can't never let anything happen to him, because then nothing would happen to him. And he's kind of like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then you're like, whoa. And I was like, whoa. And it's like it just cuts through everything. Like that is basically like the thesis of the movie to me. And it speaks so totally to the parents, I think, more so than the kids that are watching. And it's just really quite powerful. And there's definitely like moments of genuine fear and distress and comedy and drama, and it's comfortably a family film, but there's a lot here for everyone. I totally think so. 5 out of 5. Definitely watch it if you haven't. If you haven't, it's been a long time. Definitely revisit it because it's worthwhile.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
What's our first segment? Because I have no memory of anything anymore.
The week in review, or the many months in review.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah. Feel free to go back, because I'm gonna go back. But who wants to start?
Heck, I'll go.
Okay.
So, 2019, my German boys came back with their Untitled album. It was pretty good. Had a select few, right?
Who are your German boys?
I'm about to get
okay.
Christian. I'm in my hook right now. Okay, I didn't use a quote or a question. All right, I'm doing it the way I'm supposed to do it. So, anyway, Rammstein. You're welcome.
Webster's Dictionary defines Rammstein.
Yes, right. So Rammstein released Zeit, which was their COVID album, basically. After their concert got postponed for 2 years, and those were the two most interesting years of my life, waiting for that, and I'm going to see them in September. So yes, they released Zeit. It is like number 11 for albums worldwide right now, and it's number 1 in a number of Germanic European countries right now, of course. And in general, it is a very solid album, and I will say in general, it is very dark and slow and thoughtful, and there are not, like, I guess some people would argue this, but there's not really any songs that stick out as like, wow, this totally makes the album. Every song is just very solid. There's not very many skippable songs on it, in my opinion. There's a lot of Flaka, who's the keyboardist, and he's just, I think that he has some of the best work here for that. And I think there's their heaviest songs. There's a couple drop C songs, which is very unusual for them. And they obviously have a couple risque songs like they usually do, and it's 11 songs long, and their intro song is one of their best. But yeah, I mean, I think it's worth a try. I definitely think there's some songs on there that would appeal to people that aren't like totally into industrial metal. But it definitely feels like a callback album. It definitely feels like they're trying to reference a lot of their older 90s roots. And they do take advantage of a lot of those kind of cliche, like what you'd hear in every Nirvana song kind of things. So that's the extent of my music theory
Something
today.
in the
yeah. Yeah. But,
that's my favorite song from The Cure.
No. Oh, Zach,
please stop.
We need to fix you.
But yeah, I never gave a rating for the album. I'm probably gonna review every Rammstein album. I've only reviewed the first one. But I'd probably give this a 4 out of 5. And it's better than Untitled. And I think it's their 8th album, and they've been together and performing since 1994. So I think that's pretty reputable. And I definitely think anybody who's interested in that sort of thing and is okay with translating lyrics if they don't understand German should try it. So
I did listen to was Zigzag one of these singles off that album?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Zigzag
Right.
is about why plastic surgery is bad and why changing parts of yourself is counterintuitive, because time, wink wink, because Zeit means time, is in full control, and there's nothing that you can do to yourself that's going to prevent yourself from aging, and you're just going to look like crap. So
Yeah. I got that from the music video. Wouldn't have gotten it
Yes.
from the lyrics because I don't speak German, but...
yes, and Rammstein is one of those few bands where they can make something as serious as Angst, which is very political and very, you just have to watch the video to understand, but it's very political and serious, and then Zeit, which is very conceptual and, big brain about time, and then go to Zigzag or something like Dicke Titten, which you can translate for yourself. So there you go.
Well, on that note, I've scrolled all the way back in my Letterboxd diary, I guess they call it, to all the way back to the Batman, because I've watched so many things since our last entry, and I want to talk about at least some of them over time. Way back on March 9th, I watched Bringing Up Baby, a 1938 Howard Hawks classic starring Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant, and it is, let me tell you, it is freaking fantastic fun. It is just, oh my gosh, it's so good. I did not expect it to be as good as it was at all. It is so like the energy is so constant and perpetual. It is like the rapid fire comedy is like on the level of like a now time children's movie that is exhausting and annoying, except it's not annoying. It's like really funny and good. And it's 102 minutes, certainly not over long. It's in black and white because it's from 1938, but it is so entertaining. It will not take much of an attention span to get through it at all if you're not like engaged by older films. And basically like all these hijinks happen at one point, and they have to like watch over this leopard named Baby, which is why it's called Bringing Up Baby, and a bunch of crazy stuff happens. It's very much a things go wrong comedy, and like sincerely, if you were somebody that like enjoyed Scooby-Doo as a child and just like goofy stuff or like pratfalls, and I really think it's basically worth trying for anyone. It's just so massively entertaining. It's the earliest made film I've ever given a 5 out of 5, and I hope I get to watch it again soon, because boy oh boy, it is sheer pure entertainment through and through.
All right. Well, I guess I'll go for the most recent thing I watched for my weekend review, and that was The Ring from 1927. This is an Alfred Hitchcock film. It's actually his second film, because I'm trying to go back and fill in my early Alfred Hitchcock gaps. And the most screamingly dated thing about it is probably the message. The film is about a boxer whose wife abandons him for the boxer who beat him in a match. Okay. And the movie is basically about him training to get back up on top so that he can win his wife back. Now, from a modern perspective,
I don't know,
if a woman breaks up with you over a boxing match, she's probably not worth fighting for. But
have you ever boxed, Zach?
No, I have never boxed. But it's a pretty well made movie, all in all. It's not as good as later Hitchcock. But he makes really good use of close-ups throughout, which is notable for 1927, when a lot of movies were not necessarily doing that. And it shows a lot of improvement from his first film, The Pleasure Garden, which is very flat and not especially interesting, aside from like a couple shots here and there. So I gave it a 3 out of 5, which is pretty high for early Hitchcock, because it is like okay and not a slog to sit through. It has interesting character moments, but boy howdy, that story is pretty dated.
Alrighty, that's our week in quotes and review. Is it time to roll up to a new tour, perhaps?
I think it might be.
The last tour.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages, Last season, we ran something that we called the Christian's Magical Cinema Tour, which was sort of Christian becoming better acquainted with classic cinema, but he's acquainted with classic cinema now. So it's old hat. It's old news. We're taking the wheels off the bus and we're moving on to a new cinema tour, which is Zach's Marvelous Cinema Tour, where basically I am going to do my best to watch every single film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or at least one film to an episode that we do, and I'm going to talk about them. So today I'm talking about...
Sorry, go ahead, Zach. Go ahead.
So today I'm talking about Iron Man, the film that started it all. And I was sort of dreading this going in because I was thinking of, oh no, at some point I have to watch Doctor Strange and the Weird World or whatever's out right now. And I thought, my goodness, I don't want to watch that. But
Doctor Strange
Iron Man,
Weird World.
You're giving Kevin too many ideas, Zach. Okay.
But Iron Man I actually quite enjoyed.
Yes.
And I think a large part of that is this is from before the MCU was a cinematic universe, and when it really was just, let's try this out and maybe we can make some more movies out of it. So this feels a lot more director-led than the rest of the projects. It's far, far less reliant on CG. And I think it feels a lot more... The word I used in my review was tactile. It really feels like the stuff in the frame is interacting with other stuff in the frame. Things feel like they are actually there on set, interacting with people, outside of a few iffy CG shots of the suit. And it does feel real and gritty, and in some places kind of violent. The opening sequence of the film is sort of alarming in how impliedly violent it gets, where you get to know these three people and they're sort of shot up in a matter of seconds, and it does sort of startle you. I think the weakest place in the film is probably the third act, which is not necessarily an original criticism. A lot of people have said that about the film for a long time. But it falls prey to the sort of classic Marvel thing of hero fights a villain that is basically a bigger evil version of himself. And then there is a sky beam. But for me, the big drawback is that Obadiah Stane, who is, I think, a pretty interesting villain and an interesting character, at least early on, sort of loses all nuance as soon as he gets in the Ironmonger suits and becomes big growly monster man. So I think, like, first two acts, I'm really on board with it. And I think that Robert Downey Jr. is great in the role. It really is sort of the role he was born to play. He really does give off that sort of effortless charisma of a Tony Stark. But third act, it goes a bit squiffy. That being said, I have a feeling I'm going to enjoy this 10 times more than the next film up for me, which is The Incredible Hulk.
Ooh,
so
I just watched
3
that
out of
one
5 for
myself.
me. I'm not looking forward to what comes next. But we're on the Marvelous Cinema Tour, and this bus don't stop for nobody, let alone the driver.
I just see the pain in your eyes when you have to follow the word marvelous with the word cinema in it. It does bring me some joy, I must admit.
I was going to say, sometimes the cover band can be as good as the original, okay? That's all I'm going to say.
Sometimes.
Also, Zach, how did you solve the icing problem? Knee slap?
Yeah.
I love that
I
one.
didn't.
Yeah.
Oh.
I fell.
Oh.
Yeah. Ah.
Alrighty.
MCU's so fun. AC/DC's so cool.
And then Jon
He's in the
Favreau reinvigorated the Star Wars universe. Okay. And then it was time for the rundown. Right?
Wow.
Right?
Yes,
Yeah,
indeed.
So that means me and Christian against Zach, right?
You'd think.
What?
But not anymore. It's a season 3, which means there's new rules about how things are going to be. Oh.
That's how we
Get
do
served.
in the DMV.
That's how we do it in the 601.
For me, it's the 410.
The 24601.
21044, Zach.
Okay. These our audience is like, what do these numbers mean
Yeah.
at all? Okay, 1 minute, and in the past it has been quizzing Zach, but now we quiz Mitchell, our intrepid co-host,
I did not study for this.
who once penned these with me, is now being
Penned.
yeah.
The pendee.
Alrighty, Zach, I think you're gonna start this one off.
Okay.
No, wait,
You got the timer
I
going?
totally
This is
lied.
really
I'm
nerve-wracking,
gonna start
Zach.
this one off.
Did you like
Okay.
take anything before any of these? This is like, I feel like I'm gonna fail.
There are no
Yes.
wrong answers,
Okay.
unless you're Zach.
Pencils
There are no
down in
wrong
one.
answers. Alrighty, we start in 3, 2, 1. H2O intolerance.
4 out of 5.
He touched the butt.
5 out of 5.
Animated water.
5 out of 5.
Nemo swimming at the sea.
4 out of 5.
Escape.
3 out of 5.
Jaws reference.
3 out of 5.
Jellyfish.
3 out of 5.
Andrew Stanton.
3 out of 5.
Speaking whale.
4 out of 5.
Speaking humpback whale.
5 out of 5.
Ellen DeGeneres as Dory.
4 out of 5.
Pixar Animation Studios.
4 out of 5.
Zach Garrigus as Chipper Aussie Dentist.
5 out of 5.
Mr. Rosen as Mr. Ray.
4 out of 5.
Never letting anything happen to him.
4 out of 5.
Barracudas.
3 out of 5.
Anglerfish.
3 out of 5.
Sydney, Australia.
3 out of 5.
Pro Gamer Pebbles. 3 seconds.
3 out of 5.
Go, Zach.
Willem Dafoe.
Time.
3 out of 5.
Oh, I'm so glad I got Willem.
I'm chucking out the 5 out of 5, Zach. I don't care.
All right.
We're
That's
going right in.
That's the gut reaction.
Mm-hmm.
You don't walk down, you run down.
Nature of the run.
Did Sean Connery show up for a moment to tell us that fact?
Well, that was Finding Nemo. We found him, guys.
That was.
Yay. There he is.
You can turn off the Amber Alert. It's fine.
Who's
I think it's me.
All right, go for it, Zach.
Okay, so it's gonna be a bit of a tonal shift next time. But for my first choice of the season, we're talking about an Italian film.
Uh-oh.
But it's not an Italian horror film. So hopefully Christian won't throw things at me and seem very angry throughout the entire episode. We're going to be talking about A Fistful of Dollars, Sergio Leone's classic Western spaghetti Western remake of Yojimbo, actually, starring Clint Eastwood. I really enjoy this one, and it's a lead up to The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which I think is one of the greatest Westerns of all time. And maybe we'll get to that eventually, but I think we start with the first one. So if you're interested, tune in to our next episode.
Well, I, for one, am excited. I love Yojimbo.
I am also excited. I want to see how much he squints. How much can Clint Eastwood squint?
Quite a bit,
I don't know.
I'd imagine.
A lot, actually.
In all
bit, yeah.
seriousness, Zach, this has inspired like most of my favorite things in cinema and television. So, I think it'll be just fine.
Okay, all right, that's good.
We'll see, though. This has been yet another pocket of baked goods. Cookies. not other goods.
Biscuits, as it were. In it.
Croissant.
I'm gonna go now. Bye.
Goodbye.
Adios.